shouldn't type anything.
Friends, we're going to be going live with our charoset making in just a moment. Just prepare your materials. Charoset making live in just a moment. You can type that. Type in the comments that the recipe is on our website if you need it. But it's very easy. Okay, we're going to begin in just a moment. Charoset making live. It is Monday, April 6th. I know during this time where we're home that it's very easy to lose track of days. So today is Monday, April 6th. We are 2 days before Passover, which means even though we're home and we may only be cooking for 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 people, it's still nice to be able to prepare some of our Passover dishes. And of course, one of the essential things to make is charoset. So charoset, which I'm going to share the simplest recipe with you today. The recipe itself you can find on our website, www.macomny.org. It's right there on the front page if you want the recipe, but it is really super, super simple. Quantities don't matter so much, and you can be creative with it. So we're going to make charoset today. If you're gathering your materials, you want to gather some apples. You want to gather some cinnamon. You want to gather some Manischewitz wine, maybe a little sugar if you want, maybe a little bit of almonds. Make sure you have a bowl, something to chop and something to peel. And that will be everything that we need. I'm going to gather a couple of last minute things and we'll be ready to go in just a moment. I like to use just the simple Concord grape Manischewitz. If you don't have that, use whatever red wine you might have. You can use grape juice. You can be creative. If you happen to have in your home Manischewitz, that is one of the other flavors. It will add a little different flavor to your Charoset. Again, Charoset, the basic recipe is really super simple. Apples, cinnamon, Manischewitz wine, or any kind of sweet red wine or grape juice. And if you like, it could be walnuts, it could be pecans, it could be another kind of nuts. Or if you're like my family and you don't like nuts in your Charoset, you can just have simple plain Charoset. So make sure you have a bowl that's ready to go. We're going to begin by simply taking a few of our apples. Make sure that you have washed them. We're going to peel them as well, so that will work out very easily. Make sure you can see everything here. So just take a peeler and peel a few apples. Again, the quantity is really about how many people you're feeding. And my family likes when I make this right before we're eating, but of course I never do because there's always too much going on. But maybe this year we'll be able to make it on the day of Pesach. If you see bruises on your apples, just peel them away, and we're going to just peel a few apples. So there are lots of different traditions around Charoset making. You have Ashkenaz Charoset, Sephardic, you have Charoset from different countries that highlight different flavors and different aspects of the holiday. So if you want, it's easy to go online and you can search Charoset recipes and easily be able to find a new recipe. You can go in your pantry and find things, which I'm sure we're all doing every day right now, find things in your pantry that you want to add to your Charoset. The idea of Charoset is twofold. One, the idea that we're mixing multiple different things into one item, and that we want the consistency to be kind of like the glue that held the bricks together when the Jews were slaves in Egypt. So we want to think about it like the mortar, the glue that held the bricks together, and we're hoping that it will be that kind of consistency. If you're somebody who likes green apples, you could certainly add a green apple. It will add a more tart flavor to your Charoset. So I'm just going to start with 2 simple apples here. Now, there are lots of different schools of thought about how to cut your apple for Charoset. Some people like to slice it and then chop it up. Some people really like to mince it very, very small. Other people want to put it in the food processor, but make sure if you do the food processor, make sure you pulse it and don't over chop it because otherwise it'll become applesauce. So whatever is your preference, I like to just cut it by hand and chop it. Easiest way, just a simple little knife, chop it into pieces. If you have one of these choppers we use for salad a lot, you can use this at the end to kind of chop everything together. So I'm just going to simply cut these couple of apples and make sure the pieces are small enough so that they're going to absorb the wine and the cinnamon, and make sure that you're not mincing them if you are deciding to use a food processor. If you're going to use a food processor, you can pause the video here and come back to it because that'll probably take you a few more minutes. So some people like to add raisins, some people add dates, prunes. There are so many different things that you could be adding to your Charoset. Again, lots and lots of different recipes, but you really want there to be some mixing and blending of different items, and you want it to have that consistency of the paste. So I'm just about done with my first apple. If you want, you can always use a slicer. I just tend to use knife and a cutting board. It works pretty easily. And we're going to just finish up the second apple, and I'll show you about adding the wine and the cinnamon. I did give you a simple recipe. If you want to find it, it's on our website, www.macomany.org. It's right there on the front page right now, but you don't really need the recipe. It's so easy. No baking, no cooking, just some cutting, a little bit of preparation, and it's super simple. While I'm cutting, I'll share with you some of my favorite Passover recipes. So I love to make the tri-colored gefilte fish that comes from Susie Fishbein's Kosher for Passover book, and really, really easy. If you happen to have the frozen gefilte fish in your home, look that recipe up. It's a great one. All right, 2 apples chopped up. We're going to put them in my bowl here. And we're going to work quickly with the apple because, of course, we don't want the apple to brown too much. And then I'm going to add a little bit of wine. I put the measurements into the recipe, but I tend to just pour it until it looks like it's enough. I'm going to grab a large spoon here. So if you can see, just want to cover the apples. The apples will soak up the wine. So you can see here, I'm going to actually pour in a little bit more because I want to make sure that the apples have enough to soak up. So I'm going to just mix it thoroughly. And then I'm going to add a little bit of our cinnamon. Again, you can measure it out, or you can simply pour a little bit in, see what it looks like, sample it, and then you can always add more. Some people like to add a little bit extra sugar. I'm not one. I think that the sweetness of the wine is really sweet enough, and I don't think we need too much sugar, but you definitely can do that. Oops, a little mess here. So you could just end like this. Everybody sees? Okay. All right. You could have that, or you could take one of these choppers and just kind of chop a little bit more in your bowl. Make sure you push the apples down to the center of the bowl. Make sure you have a big enough bowl. Everyone sees this bowl. It's a nice big aluminum bowl, so you can chop a little bit more. And lastly, if you are looking for the traditional Ashkenaz Charoset recipe, it does have some nuts in it. The classic nut people use is walnuts, but please just look in your pantry, whatever you might have. I noticed we had some pecans as well. So I'm going to chop up the walnuts. Obviously, when you're cutting nuts, you want to have a bigger knife. The apples, you can do a smaller one, but for chopping up nuts, you want to have a larger knife. So we're just going to chop these nuts pretty small. You don't want to have large bites of the nuts. You want to really make them pretty small. Do your best to chop them up. Don't forget, once we toss it in the bowl and mix it, we're going to be able to chop it one more round with my salad chopper. This is something I wouldn't necessarily recommend in the food processor, but you could do it in there. For me, I find using the food processor is a lot of extra cleaning that I don't need. So, once I finish chopping, then I'm going to simply move my walnuts into my bowl. I'm going to mix them all together. You might decide at this stage that you want a little bit more wine. So I'm going to add a little bit more, especially because it's going to go in my refrigerator for the next 2 days, which means that the apples are going to soak up that wine. That's what happens. So just keep mixing. You see how all that wine was soaked up? You see? Yes? Okay. All right. And once we've done all this mixing, again, raisins, prunes, dates, dried apricots, figs, those are all great things to add to your charoset. If you want to have a different base than apple, you could certainly do that. I noticed somebody online posting they're allergic to apples. Use a pear, use a different kind of fruit as your base. But really, the idea is a mixture of several different items and a consistency that's kind of like paste. So I'm going to actually do a little more chopping now that I have the walnuts in here. I'm going to just chop it up a little bit. And once you're done, clean it off. And you've got a nice bowl filled with charoset. So again, be creative. You really don't need a recipe to do this. Charoset is super, super easy. Of course, when we would have seders with 20, 30, 100 people, making charoset is a little tedious. It's a lot of apple chopping, but for everybody this year, you'll be able to make the charoset no problem. I hope that you find some creative recipes within your own heads. Share the recipes that you find with us. Show us the pictures of your charoset, and we look forward to seeing some of the creations that you are able to invent. Wishing everybody a Zisen Pesach, a Chag Sameach. You will be able to find our videos here on Facebook Live on Makom NY, and you can also find them within 24 hours on our YouTube channel, Makom NY. If anybody is in need of a place virtually to be for Seder, we invite you into our community Seder. Please simply go on our website, www.makomny.org, register for the Seder, and we'll send you the information that you need. We'll be hosting a community virtual Seder on Zoom and Facebook Live on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, April 8th, 2020, 5:30 p.m. We invite you to join us. Again, Zisen Pesach to all, and enjoy your charoset.